Greetings. My name is Steve Muhammad, and you're watching nnbnews.com. As states across the country continue to experience food shortages and distribution in their food supply and distribution chain, more and more states are stockpiling tons of food, including canned goods, non-perishable foods, and staple foods in anticipation of the needs ahead.
Now we're learning the states have been stockpiling. This report from the Seattle Times: from peanut butter to applesauce, Washington state stockpiles tons of food. Why? For the need ahead, because they know there are massive interruptions to our supply chain already, that these are escalating, that they're cascading failures building on themselves, that they're harvest labor.
What you're looking at here in this Fife warehouse is about 1,200 pallets of food.
The purpose of this is to provide sort of a reservoir for shelf-stable food that is entering the system to support our hunger prevention efforts around the state.
Derek Sanderson, director of the Washington State Department of Agriculture, toured the state's new COVID strategic reserve on Friday. Within 48 hours of communities asking for help, these pallets can be placed on trucks and distributed to food pantries across the state. The focus is on stockpiling foods like canned vegetables, peanut butter, items that don't spoil easily. During the early days of the pandemic, they were also hard to come by at times as folks hoarded items, left store shelves bare, and disrupted the supply chain.
Joining us to discuss these important topics is Brother Jalil X. Carter, student minister for the Flint and McGee study group, and also owner of TMC Electronic. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good to have you back, brother. Recently, weather disasters have hit the U.S., causing deaths, destruction of property, disruption in the food supply, water and utilities, and require people to evacuate their homes. Are these different types of disaster preparedness plans that we should be have in place to address and prepare for each of these types of events?
Yes, sir. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that there would be a time that will come that will be considered the dark hour. And it could last anywhere from 6 months to a year. And we should store food in our home, canning, the sisters canning navy beans, tomatoes, and other different things to be prepared for what is to take place. But also in the short sense, you should have something called a shed-in kit list, where if you're shed into your home and you can't get out, other than the food items that we should be having and storing, we should have personal items in our home, first aid kits in our homes, certain type of equipment like flashlights with extra batteries or glow sticks. We should have some type of protective gear in our home, the proper amount of clothing, of course, if we're shedding in, and food for a minimum of 90 days. And then also you have what is called a to-go bag. So if you're in a situation like you just shown in the news clip, tornadoes or floods coming through and you have to leave the home, you should have a to-go bag prepared where you're able to grab, you and your family, and you grab bags from each family, and you have an emergency survival manual in the bag. You'd have a first aid kit in the bag. You have the medications for those who have medications they must take. You have money in the bag that you can use for currency for trade and barter while you're out, copies of your identification, and important documents in your to-go bag. Certain equipment like flashlight, batteries, waterproof matches, protective gear, something for entertainment, because if you got to go and you with your family, you want to have something for entertainment, like travel games or something to read or toys for the young children.
Right.
Certain amount of clothing. So if you, in your to-go bag, you need to have something prepared that will cover, and we live in the Midwest where there's 4 seasons, really 3, because we got winter, fall, winter, and summer. We don't really get spring. It either goes summer and spring about the same. So
right into it. So you're right. Very important to have that to-go bag, and people definitely need to look that up to make sure they get all the necessary supplies in their to-go bag. Now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in his 2019 message, Guidance to Black America, America is surrounded with the judgment of God. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan warned us of a time when there will be calamity after calamity. Are we in the midst of that time that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has warned us about? And what must be done?
Without a doubt, we're in that time. If you just look at Texas and the freeze over, temperature down to 10 degrees for over a week, pipes busting and freezing. You see icicles 20 feet tall inside parking garages. The electrical grid system failed. People didn't have power. It was so cold, they weren't used to that type of inclement weather and temperature drop, nor was the electrical company, ERCOT, prepared for the grid that would be needed to provide for the people to continue to have electricity.
Right.
So, of course, what the minister has told us has surely come to pass. What we can do in the physical is prepare for any unforeseen disaster that has been told to us that will come about or will occur. But in the spiritual, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, our righteousness will get us through. And so we have to get ourselves together with God, along with the preparation of having the proper equipment and proper things available to us so that we can make it through this dark times.
Absolutely. It says a United Nations food prices indicator showed food prices hit a 6-year high in January 2021. Is the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic adding to the spike in food prices? And if so, how?
Yes, because the farmers have taken a blow. And so the produce, mostly, I won't say as much due to COVID as it is to the weather conditions, but because of the lack of the production of food, the prices went up because there's been a higher demand. And when the demand can't be met, in order to keep it on the shelf a little longer, to try to spread it out, they raised the prices so that you couldn't buy a whole bunch of it at the high price, but you will get a little bit and it'll save some for somebody else to get a little bit. I look at that issue as being the poor and the despised and rejected will continue to suffer from it no matter what, because they put the worst kind of food into our neighborhoods.
Right.
And they don't give us the good food. And if the prices are that high and we can't even afford the worst food that they give us at the prices that they give us, then there has to be something to offset the fact that some people will be starving just because they can't afford the food on the shelf.
Mm, right. Absolutely. And so will the rising food prices add to the global food insecurity?
It will. And the food insecurities will cause many people to store food up from food giveaways and other places in order to offset that global pandemic of the lack of food.
Right. Absolutely. And how can farming and animal husbandry reduce this food insecurity?
Well, farming will allow us to produce our own food if we're producing for ourselves. As you know, we have the Muhammad's Farm that's ran by Dr. Ridgely, and he does a magnificent job. You
Yes.
mentioned in your opening the staple goods, and we have, the navy bean, brown rice, lentils, and other things. And this form of farming, going out, we have to learn how to actually go out into our own backyard, put up hoop houses for people that's in weather like we have in Michigan, and start growing our own food, because first we know what we're putting in. If we grow it ourselves, we know what we got. But in a food pandemic, not only are you worried about the lack of food that's on the shelf, but the lack of quality of food. If it is on the shelf, you don't know if it's biochemically engineered.
Right.
You don't know what chemicals were sprayed on the food in order to keep animals and other certain things away from the environment. So, from the food. So,
Right.
I believe having our own farm land and the husbandry operations of it will allow us to be able to survive if we get into the habit of growing our own food and making our own way through our own
Now,
farming.
we got a few more minutes before we go to our break, and you all are giving you all do a food giveaway. Can you talk the importance of the community coming together and having a food garden and growing their own food? And can you talk a little bit about that food giveaway, and then we'll go into this break?
Well, first, having our own food garden and growing our own food will teach us to do for self, not only for a day, but until eons in time after. But coming to pick up food that someone is giving you, once that is no longer provided, then what will you do? Just sit there and twiddle your thumbs waiting on something else to come.
Right.
But the food giveaway we do, Sister Lela passionately called it COVID-19 immune boosting food, because we give away a lot of vegetables, foods high in protein, fruits. We give away milk and other things. And this is done in remembrance of Brother Roy Muhammad, who was hit and killed while soldiering the Final Call newspaper.
Yes, sir.
And so we started doing it in his name, in honor of him. And the food giveaway, we pick and order what we would like to have delivered to us to give away, because we don't want to be giving away food that is not good.
Right.
And because the nation is behind the food giveaway, partnered with Second Chance Church and actually the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. participates with us. We make sure if anything comes that is not eatable, we don't pass it out. We send it back or throw it away. And
Yes, sir.
there seems to be a need for it because we do it every Friday at 9 a.m. and the line is always wrapped around the
Right.
lot going out into the streets.
Well, we're going to go into this break, my brother, and unity in the community. Let's take this break from our sponsors.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Greetings. It's been nearly 7 years since the Flint, Michigan water crisis began. Flint residents, homeowners, and businesses affected by the Flint water crisis have been given a deadline of March the 29th, 2021 to register to file a claim in the $641 million class action lawsuit. Joining us today, we have Sister Lela MaGee. She is the author of Underneath the Poisoning, Flint and Genesee County, Our Untold Story. I want to bring in both our guests, Sister Lela MaGee and Brother Jalil Carter. And my first question is to you, Brother Carter, Brother Jalil. People in Flint, Michigan have experienced food shortages, especially during COVID-19 pandemic and Flint water crisis. I understand that there's a food distribution program named in honor of one of our deceased Nation of Islam brothers, Brother Roy Muhammad, who was hit by a vehicle while his post distributing the Final Call newspaper. What does the food program provide, and how often are the distributions?
The food program is every Friday at 9 a.m. We have how it works. They have 3 different ways of being involved in the food program from the Eastern Food Bank of Michigan. You can either do the pay program where they take money and go actually purchase the food from Myers or Kroger's, then bring it to the food bank, then the food bank packages it up, brings it out to us. Or you could do the farm program where they buy food from the farm and the farmers to help them generate income during this COVID pandemic. And you can get that and pass it out, or they send food that was donated. Most of the time, we choose the bought food that's bought fresh out of the store, and every now and then we get the food from the farmers who they have this program with the farmers. The food it covers the vegetables, fruit, dairy. Sometimes we give away toiletry products. We have Kleenex, toilet paper. The last 2 weeks we had hand soap and hand sanitizer to give away.
All right. And let's take a look at this clip and get you all's response.
A group of attorneys representing adults, property, and business owners in the Flint water crisis held a virtual town hall on Thursday night, bringing up some of the major issues from community members registering to join a partial settlement of more than $640 million, like not having immediate access to a birth certificate, tax return, or any other document required in the registration process.
Get your registration form in as quickly as you can, and then you can later supplement your filing.
Attorney Michael Pitt is the interim co-lead to class counsel. He and other class counsel members are also offering some tips for hiccups with technology, like using a computer instead of a phone, using Google Chrome instead of Safari, or checking your spam folder if you haven't received the login token email. But whether you're submitting a hard copy or an online copy, it's critical to remember to file separate forms for every person, property, and business owner.
If there are 5 members in the family and you're the head of household, make sure you submit 5 registration forms.
Pitt's big takeaway is the clock is ticking as the March 29th deadline is right around the corner.
All right. And I have one more question for you, and then we'll go to our author, Sister Lela. Brother, I understand that the food program is run by volunteers in the community. Tell us about the volunteers and also about the guests with you today, Sister Lela MaGee.
Yes, the volunteers come from a variety of different groups. We have Pastor Aldrich and Second Chance Church volunteers. We actually have Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. They bring up 4 or 5 volunteers. And we have the MGT sister, Linda Muhammad, and we have a few brothers come up from the FOI to help. And of course, we have our illustrious sister, Sister Lela MaGee Harvey from Operation Unification. She comes up and help. She always uses the slogan, come pick up your COVID-19 immune boosting food to boost our immune system, because we talk vaccine, but nobody is talking healing the body naturally.
That's right.
What God has given us to do. So Sister Lela MaGee McGee has several books out. She's been with the nation and soldiering for our people for as long as I've been knowing her, at least 17, 18 years. And
yes.
She does a magnificent job in researching and gathering information in order to be thorough to help people really know what's really going on, because most people go off of what they hear and what they see, but they never go in and dig and find the real information to know who their true enemy is and where the fight really lies.
Right. And so let me ask Sister, with a beautiful introduction like that, as a volunteer with the Roy Muhammad Food for Flint food giveaway, what brought you to the program? What impact do you see the program having in the Flint, Michigan community?
First, let me thank you all for having me. And thank you so much, dear brother Jalil, for the nice accolades. It all belongs to God. Certainly it is a pleasure to be able to serve in my community. As Brother Jalil mentioned earlier, is that I've been serving for a very long time. And being a part of the food giveaway, which is on the northern side of Flint, is very dear to my heart. That is one of the hardest hit communities or districts in the Flint area. It's the furthest of the northern part of Flint. We call it Flint Beecher. And to be able to serve those families. But I was very yoked to that organization, Brother Roy Muhammad's organization, because of my affinity with the nation, as well as many of the other Christian leaders who are out there working to ensure that the hardest hit families have access to this food. I believe, without a doubt, this food is a necessity. But I do believe that Brother Jalil share in my sentiments that it is so very important that we administer this food, but we come up with different plans to ensure that we come out of the food lines and that we are able to sustain ourselves. I am not able to be there every Friday, as Brother Jalil will tell you, but it is because I'm working on other missions and initiatives in our community to ensure that our community can come out of the food line and can be self-sustainable, because we don't want to continue to have to feed our community, but we want to teach the community how to fish.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to get into some more conversation with you, sister, in our next part. I wanted to go into asking you, Brother Jalil, another question. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has warned us about the food and water. He said they're killing us by zip code, killing us through food. Flint is not an accident. They are killing us through water. What is the condition of the Flint water now, and is it safe to drink?
Well, no, it's not safe to drink.
Right.
No, not in no form is it safe to drink. They will say the water is better on paper, but in reality, it's not better. First of all, me being a contractor and understanding how construction, infrastructure, and all that works, you can't change 30 feet to 50 feet of a pipe that's still connected to thousands of feet of corruptible pipe and say that you sent water into a household through a better infrastructure. No, you have to change the entire infrastructure, meaning all new piping. That's number one. Number two, the water plant is utilizing chemicals and things that's over chemicalizing our water by putting too much chlorine in still. They're not dealing with other parts of the water that is bad, which is TTHMs, other forms of bacteria, high forms of metals, copper. And then to top it off, we've been asking for a cancer cluster review and research on the water, because of some of the things in the water has caused a lot of people cancer, and it could be directly tied back to it, but it seems to be a hard fight to get that done. But I would say, without a doubt, the water isn't better. You still need to use a filter at your faucet. You need a whole house filter to be safe enough to take a shower or a bath.
Wow.
I wouldn't use the water without any form of a filtration system still on the water in Flint.
So your company, TMC Electric, you all have been installing these water filters. Tell us about what you do and about how you serve the community.
Yes, I started installing whole house water filtration systems in 2015, actually, because my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia July 15, 2014. And because of that, I went and I did the Sister Lela and started researching and compiling data and information to learn about what I would need to make the water the safest in our house, since we had an immune compromised daughter. And I even made it to the point where I talked to the CEO of one of the filter makers of the carbon filters that helps remove lead up to 99.97%. And once I got enough information, testing done with the EPA to show that they did what they said they would do, I started installing them. At this point now, I think I'm over 250 homes that we put them in, and we still maintenance them and change the filtration systems. The filters out in them, they last from 9 months to a year. Roughly. And I could get a list of people's testimonies on the change. I had elderly people whose hair was falling out. Their skin had rashes on it. After the filtration system was put in, after a couple of months, they noticed their hair wasn't falling out. Their skin restored itself, went back to normal. So I seen a big need for it. And unfortunately, it never got off the floor globally in the city to get enough backing where they would consider the residents enough to want to put it in everybody's home. But we did help at least 250 residents to have whole house filtration systems.
That's right. You know, yeah, that at least that's good. That's real good. That's a start, definitely. Sister Lela, you have a talk show that informs the community about the Flint water crisis. Can you share with us the latest events in the Flint water class action lawsuit?
Certainly. Recently, we received information relative to a timeline, a date of March 29th, where every resident has to either opt in or opt out as it relates to this lawsuit. And so that means that you can't just stay at home. You have to opt in or opt out. We certainly know, and I believe Brother Jalil agrees with me, that we fought, some of us went to Ann Arbor to stand in front of the judge to tell her that $641 million was not enough money. We unequivocally believe that. We stand behind that, but the judge wanted to proceed. And so as I tell the residents on my radio show each week, is that we have to engage. And even though we didn't get everything that we wanted as related to having more money, as related to, we can't get caught at the station and this train has left the track. And so I have used my platform to encourage our residents to at least get signed up, and we'll fight while we're in the midst of signing up, but it's important to get signed up. So from the depth of our hearts, we know that $641 million was not enough. That is not enough to take care of all of the neurological issues that the children have in our community. As Brother Jalil indicated, our greatest fear is the elder people who will be summoned with different cancers in the future, prostate, organ cancer. I know there's the stigma that people believe across the nation that we lost 12 people due to Legionella, but he and I know that the number is much higher due to certain cancers and organ cancers in young people our age. And so the fight is on, and we will continue. And I use my broadcast to research and to educate our community that they have the best of the summation and the information that I can possibly give, so they're not told wrong. Because a lot of time, as I always say, is that the media are sometimes our local media, and a lot of the elitists, they lie to our community.
Right, absolutely. And so we want to definitely ask you about your live stream program and that you talk about current events. So what is the network that you broadcast on? And can you also share with us some of the, as we are talking right now about the COVID-19 and the Flint water crisis, but there are other current events that we haven't mentioned that you cover in your show. Can you maybe share some with of those with us, and please let us know where we can listen and watch your program?
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the first things that I always like to share on my show, and actually, let me say the genesis of my show started is because I'm actually the first African-American certified housing authority in the city of Flint and Genesee County. And so I started the show by teaching people home ownership. My partner and I, what we did was we wanted to ensure not only did we renovate and build a home, but we were teaching the literacy aspect of home ownership. And we ensured that our families had the lowest interest rate, the lowest DPA, which is the down payment assistance, making sure that even if they lost their job, that they could pick up bottles and they could afford to pay their mortgage. And so that's how the show began. I mean, we span off, and unfortunately, because of the heist, which is a man-made disaster, because of the water crisis, I turned the show because it was important to begin to tell people how to fortify their bodies while we were being exposed to lead and TTHMs and PFAS and all of the other chemicals that was in the water. And so from there, we got hit again with COVID. And so one of the things I like to tell people is that once we were hit with the water crisis, when COVID hit, a lot of people like to say we were impacted. We were not impacted in the city of Flint. We were actually already on life support. So we really went into cold blue. And so people like myself and Brother Jalil are out there doing our part in terms of helping to sustain the community, inform the community, and help the community become self-reliant. That is not what God says is over.
Let me give you a pause right there. We're going to go to and announce, give our sponsors a break. And so we'll be right back and we'll continue this conversation. And when we come back, Brother Jalil will be leaving us, but we want to thank you, brother, for being on the program with us. And so we'll be right back after this.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
This is Sister Sajida Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajida House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. As we renovate and restore the former home of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, we have recycled the old copper gutters and downspouts and created a 1 ounce 39mm coin made of 100% pure copper. Each coin is professionally graded and has its own barcode and registration number. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
As nearly 200,000 Jackson, Mississippi residents struggle for the last 2 weeks to obtain drinking water, and nearly 1,000 residents are left with no running water, people have resorted to using alternative means to get water in. Residents of Jackson are forced to use bottled water for drinking, cooking, and bathing after the city's ailing pipe infrastructure was damaged by the freeze.
A city in crisis.
My faucet, nada.
The stores don't have water.
We're suffering in the city of Jackson right now.
Nearly 200,000 residents in Jackson, Mississippi surviving without drinkable water for more than 2 weeks. Thousands have no running water at all after a sudden freeze wreaked havoc on the city's aging water pipes.
That's all the way up.
Kahinde Gaynor has been struggling to keep his entire family safe.
So how are you with this family of 5 getting by right now?
We don't know what's coming out of that water. I don't feel comfortable bathing in it. I definitely don't feel comfortable brushing our teeth and cooking or anything else like that with it.
And he's not alone. The city now under a boil water advisory.
I use bottled water to wash my hands and to brush my teeth.
Many relying on tanker trucks brought in by the National Guard and donations of plastic bottles at distribution centers like these.
And we are joined once again by author and activist, Sister Lela MaGee. And with the Jackson, Mississippi being 80% Black, do you think that the water crisis is a result of race issues in Mississippi? And if you don't, why not?
Well, actually, I do believe it is. And when I read and studied about Mississippi, it mirrors Flint a lot. Mississippi was one of the places, was just like Flint, where we migrated to from different areas looking for opportunity and jobs. And typically when we came to those areas, desegregation took place and white flight took place. And many of those families, those white families left the areas. They abandoned those areas. When they abandoned those areas, just like in Flint, they decided that they would not put money back into the area. So it starts from a local, state, and a governmental perspective in terms of ensuring that these communities and the infrastructure of these communities are taken care of. Mississippi, unlike Flint, infrastructure was damaged by the weather, but we also have to remember when we talk about places like Mississippi and we talk about places like Texas, it was a lot of deregulation. It was a lot of Republican rules and procedures and policy decisions that led to this. And so if you looked at Mississippi in comparison to the city of Flint, you would look and see that it was with observation that both places were starved when it comes to certain tax dollars being sent down and disseminated to ensure that the infrastructure was replaced or either repaired. And so it's an absence of government in urban communities. And so, yes, I believe it was racially motivated. And I also believe this will happen in many other urban communities across the country because of the neglect from policy and government. So absolutely, I do believe that.
Yes. And what organizations and charities in Jackson, Mississippi are providing or helping out to provide clean water?
Wow. You have so many. And one of the things was interesting is when many of the Army trucks came in with the big tubs of water and the big, what do you call those things? I'm so sorry. The big tubs of semi trucks. We didn't have an opportunity to have that. But when I saw that, I was happy about it. I looked at the number of people who were donating funds to the water. But one of the things about Mississippi is Mississippi was in the light of Texas. And so it needed more money. And so I want to say that to the people who are actually out here listening, is that Mississippi was in the shadow of Texas. And they believe that Mississippi is not really suffering, but it has a suffrage there. And so they need more donations. They need more water, larger pools of water. As a matter of fact, we talk about the bottled water that a lot of families in Mississippi are having and are granted. But I am also familiar with the families who live in urban communities and rural areas in Mississippi who are catching water in tubs, waters in pots. So we have to ensure that this, in the opportunity that we're granted here, allows people to donate to those rural areas to ensure that everybody has access to bottled water, because not everybody in Mississippi right now does have bottled water.
Yes, thank you. It says there's a high poverty rate in Jackson. What is Jackson's poverty rate, and how many people are living in poverty?
Wow, it's interesting. When I was looking at Jackson, the average family there makes $40,000, and so and Jackson is almost like 90% African American. I will say very neglected and abandoned. Many of the suburban areas around. The number of people that are living in poverty is similar and mirrors Flint. You're talking almost 60 to 70% of the people who live in poverty, in particular in the rural areas. When I thought about the number and I looked and saw that it was 40,000 people there, I mean, the average income was 40,000 people. It kind of mirrored Flint, but Flint was a little less because Flint is at 27,500. And so when you think about these communities who are distressed, these communities who live in such impoverished zip codes, who have to purchase bottled water, who live with limited incomes, it's very taxing. It's very, very taxing. And so what we need right now is for people to have a soft heart for these families, to help them offset, because many of them, we're talking almost 65% of the people there who are living in poverty, in particular in the rural areas, are really being hit. And so to be able to open your heart and to offer these families who are restricted with incomes would be great. It would be great.
Absolutely. What are some of the ways that residents in Jackson, we just have a little feedback for a second there, but what are some of the ways that residents in Jackson, Mississippi are doing to be able to drink water and clean with it?
Well, I'll start with the travesty first, is that some of them are catching water. Some of them are catching water, using it to flush their toilets, using it, some of it to bathe in, which those are the real stories. Some are using a lot of bottled water. I can tell you about bottled water. In Flint, we were on bottled water. And most people don't realize when you say bottled water, it might sound so simplistic. It's like, oh, it's just bottled water. But to wash your hair, it takes almost 50 bottles of water to wash your hair. Or to bathe in the morning with water and a toothbrush. It takes at least 2 bottles of water. And so you can only imagine to take a bath in the water. And so just like Mississippi, Flint was the same way. So I understand the cry. I understand the need that the families have down there, just being restricted with the human basic right, which is water. It's just unbelievable. But it is not a accident. It is by design that these urban communities now are being hit hard, and water supply is the main issue. And I saw also in Mississippi where lead was an issue as well, because the pipes are antiquated. The infrastructure is worn. And so when it begins to rattle, you're talking about lead breaking off into. And so it's my hope that they don't have the levels that we had here, which was very toxic, almost like a cesspool. So it's my hope that we don't have that, but more in Mississippi, but more so they have lower levels, because we know that children absorb lead 100% time faster than adults do.
And so we'll ask this one question and we'll go to break. And that is, this record-breaking snowstorm is what damaged Jackson, Mississippi water plant. How often does Jackson, Mississippi get snowstorms?
Actually not often. Not often. But here's the thing, is that when you talk about the snowstorms that hit Jackson as well as Texas, we also have to talk about the neglect from the government in terms of the infrastructure. If the infrastructure was brought up to the current conditions, if money had been funneled to these urban communities, in particular in Texas, if there was not a lot of deregulation, then you wouldn't have had this crisis. Regardless of when snow or where ice hits in the United States of America, our infrastructure should be able to handle that. And because these communities are neglected, because the money is rerouted and disseminated to a lot of the suburban areas, this is the end result of that.
Yes, that's good. That's good. So let's take a break for our announcements from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headlines Savior's Day 2021. How strong is the foundation? Can we survive? The Nation of Islam's first virtual Savior's Day convention was a great success. Entering into 91 years of service, the annual NOI celebration was filled with inspiration. Plenary sessions focused on aspects of the nation's 9 ministries, as well as challenges and solutions facing the Black nation as America's downward spiral continues. Student Minister Ishmael Muhammad delivered the Sunday lecture at the National Center Mosque Maryam to a socially distanced audience that was broadcast to the world through NOI.org. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan surprised the audience, appearing to deliver a special message that lasted a little over an hour. This Final Call number 22 edition middle page features the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. Happy Savior's Day. To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVnews.com Final Call Cover Report.
Greetings. As we go into these last few minutes, I want to ask Sister Lela MaGee, author and activist, do you think that it's a coincidence that just like Jackson, Mississippi, the water crisis that happened in Flint, Michigan, both cities are majority Black people? Flint does not have water. Do you think that Jackson water, the water crisis, may last as long as the Flint water crisis?
Oh my goodness. Well, it is my hope that Jackson does not. It is my hope that the residents do not. In researching and reading many of the articles as it relates to Jackson, Mississippi, what I saw was the same thing that was happening in the city of Flint, is that at the state level, many of the senators and many of your congresspeople are very unintentional about ensuring that the money gets to the infrastructure. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the infrastructure is talking about $342 million to repair the infrastructure. But the state of Mississippi wants to only grant $40 million. So you're talking about patching. And so if this was a suburban area, just like Flint, it would be no question as it relates to ensuring that the city and the community is taken care of with the infrastructure. And so $45 million will patch Jackson, but it might freeze again next year. You might have a burst somewhere else. And so you're right back where you started. So the issue really is not about the infrastructure. The issue is about color. It's about race. It's about these areas that we migrated to. And now we are the percentage of the people that are living there, and they're becoming neglected by not only the local officials, but state as well as governmental. And so we have to put together plans, and we have to demand on a national, on a state and city, that our communities are taken care of and the infrastructure is repaired, because the suburban areas are taken care of. And this is why you're having the crisis only in areas where brown and colored people are.
So we want to close out, and we'll wait until. So we want to close out with this elephant in the room question, right? And that is, do you think that Jackson, Mississippi's water crisis could be easily fixed if the government cared enough to fix it?
Oh, absolutely. Let's start with this statement, is that I don't believe that there would be a question, that you wouldn't even have an issue if they were not people of color. I don't think you would have the issue. But when I looked into the research of Jackson, Mississippi, many of the senators, many of the state reps, they're not willing to send money down. As a matter of fact, they just began to have conversation about even trying to fix the state of Mississippi and the people living in Jackson. And so I just believe that when you want to make something right, or you want to make it whole, you do the work. But when you're talking about the gamut of the people who moved away from you now are the policy makers and the decision makers, then you still are talking about a racist mindset, a superiority mindset that believes we are not worth the while. And Mississippi is the same exact way.
So as we close into these final few minutes, please give those who are viewing, once again, your book, where they can listen to your live streaming program, and any other information that you think is necessary for them to be able to help in this crisis.
Thank you so very much. The name of my book is Underneath the Poisoning, Flint in Genesee County, Our Untold Stories. It can be purchased at Barnes & Nobles or either on Amazon. And there you can find just a plethora of information about myself. You can follow me on Facebook at LelaMaGee.com, or you can reach me at LMH Professions. Lela MaGee at LMH Professions. And let me say that one more time. Lela MaGee at LMH Professions. What I believe across the nation, not just when we're talking about Jackson, Mississippi, or we're talking about the city of Flint, I think we all have to have the spirit to begin to do a collective work and to demand as a nation of colored people that our infrastructures and our cities are not abandoned, because they were abandoned by white flight, segregation policies that we thought the integration was going to take care of us. And actually we were penalized by certain policies and systems. And so I think as I leave here is we have to begin to have some kind of dialogue or come together as a nation of people of color, ensure that the communities that we dwell in are well taken care of. And so that's food for thought in the future. But I believe if we can sit at the table and do that as people together, we can make a difference in our communities, and particularly in the urban communities.
Yes. Thank you, sister, for joining us on NNV News. And as we close out, we want to always thank you all for tuning in to NNV News. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop comments in the comment section below, and subscribe. And as always, this is your host, Steve Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.